In 1955, the Pennsylvania Railroad, Norfolk and Western Railway, and Rail Trailer Corporation founded the Trailer Train Company. Trailer Train had three main objectives: to promote trailer-on-flat car, or piggyback, transportation of truck trailers by rail, to standardize piggyback rail equipment, and to provide a pool of piggyback rail equipment to its members at the lowest possible cost. Trailer Train expanded its fleet to automobile carriers and general service flat cars of all descriptions. By 1969, they had a fleet of over 50,000 rail cars, growing to 75,000 by 1975. Trailer Train diversified into boxcars, creating the RBOX subsidiary in 1974 and rostering tens of thousands of boxcars on top of their fleet of flat cars. For most of its history, Trailer Train's focus for piggyback service was on large flat cars built to handle 2 trailers each. In the early 1980s, Trailer Train began experimenting with a concept for smaller flat cars with 2 axles instead of 4 that could handle 1 large trailer. A 4-unit prototype called the Forerunner was tested on the Chicago Northwestern and Union Pacific Railroads. From those and other tests, a refined single-car version called the Frontrunner was designed. Some 1,000 were built. The Frontrunners were rather unique on the North American rail network. While almost every American freight car rides on 4 axles, 2 in each bogie, the Frontrunners had 2 axles total. Weighing in at 25,500 pounds, an empty Frontrunner weighed less than half that of an empty boxcar, and almost exactly half that of a standard 89-foot trailer flat car. These little spine cars were rated for loads of up to 30 tons, or 60,000 pounds. The concept of the Frontrunner was to haul trailers more efficiently. Instead of single trailers on a long flat car, the weight of the freight car itself could be reduced, requiring less power and thus less fuel to move the same load. 2-axle designs for freight cars are a tried-and-true concept, being the norm on European railways. The Frontrunners entered service and soon could be found mixed in on TOFC, or trailer-on-flat car, trains all across North America. However, in regular service, the cars began to show some weak points. At speed, Frontrunners were often observed to be hunting or almost zigzagging down the track. Modifications were made to try to minimize this, but they never really smoothed out entirely. However, that was the least of the Frontrunners' problems. There are many anecdotes out there of these cars derailing, including one from a train crew who said they had one in their train that derailed unbeknownst to them and was dragged sideways for a quarter mile or more before they were flagged down. The crew said the car had basically disintegrated in the accident. It got bad enough that, for a time, the Southern Pacific Railroad refused to accept Frontrunners and interchange service. If a Frontrunner arrived at an SP yard, SP would take it out of the train, transfer the trailer on board to another flat car, and send the Frontrunner back where it came from, empty. The light weight that was the Frontrunner's key asset for efficiency was also its undoing. Long trains of 2-axle wagons in Europe are maybe 30 or 40 wagons long, and those wagons are rather light. By comparison, North American freight trains are considered long when they start to exceed 100 cars, and each of those cars can weigh 30 or 40 tons each, empty. 10,000-ton freight trains are a daily occurrence on American freight railroads, with some mineral trains easily pushing closer to 15,000 tons. For trailer or container trains, the overall weight is generally less. But when you have small flat cars that weigh half that of the cars around them buried in the middle of thousands of tons of train, and the brake supply bunching everything up, it's not hard to see why the Frontrunners got pushed off the rails. Empty trailer cars and empty container well cars are notorious for being quick to pop off the tracks if placed in the wrong place on a train or exposed to too much force. But the Frontrunners seemed even more susceptible to it. Over time, the Frontrunners fell out of favor, and Trailer Train began withdrawing them from service at the turn of the millennium. They last saw service in the early 2000s, with car number 130059 being donated to the National Museum of Transportation in Kirkwood, Missouri for posterity. The end of the Frontrunner was hardly a blip on the radar for Trailer Train, now the TTX company. The company still exists, co-owned by every major American railroad to provide a reliable and readily available pool of rail cars to the owning railroads as needed, where needed. With a fleet of over 177,000 cars, TTX equipment can be seen on just about every North American freight train today. The only difference is now that it's all 4-axle or articulated rolling stock. While two-axle wagons continue to work perfectly fine in Europe, not everything about European operating practice translates easily across the Atlantic. The American stereotype may be that bigger is always better, but there are times when bigger can be necessary simply because of the environment in which the equipment is operating. As the old saying goes, what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. However, there is something to be said about the American way of giving something a shot anyways. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Either way, there's something to be learned.